Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripada Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripada Hari Yashodanandana Rajaganandana Yashodanandana Rajaganandana Ramana Kira Vanashati Yamuna Tira Vanashati Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripada Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripada Hari Yashodanandana Rajaganandana Yashodanandana Rajaganandana Ramana Kira Vanashati Yamuna Kira Vanashati Radha Madhava Kunja Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Gaur Pimanandi Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Pri Prajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Hirabai Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi BC Founder Sharia's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samavata Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jainitai Gauru Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Yes. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurandilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Sya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Sridham Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayashabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Utamashloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasthaya Namaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Sridham Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Saradhyaya Namaha. Om Saradhyaya Namaha. Om Saradhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pagum nangayate girim yadkripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataram. Yadkripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. We did not complete the verses we had planned to read yesterday, so we will do that today, continuing from the 13th chapter of the 7th canto, the 13th chapter being entitled The Behavior of a Perfect Person, and today we are reading 33 and 34. Rajatash Chorata Shatrohu Swa Janat Pashu Pakshitaha. Are you following this verse? Opening. Artibhya Kalataha Swasman Nityam Pranartavad Hayam Rajasas Chorata Shatro Swajanat Pashu Pakshita Artibhya Kalata Swasman Nityam Pranarthavad Bhayam Rajatas Chaurata Shatru Swajanat Pashu Pakshita Artibhya Kalata Swasman Nityam Pranarthavat Bhayam Rajashas Chaurata Shatru Swajanat Pashu Pakshitaha Artibhya Kalata Swasman Nityam Pranarthavat Bhayam Rajasas Chorata Shatru Swajanat Pashu Pakshitaha Artibhya Kalata Swasman Nityam Pranarthavat Bhayam Rajasas Chorata Shatru Swajanat Pashu Pakshitaha Artibhya Kalata Swasman Nityam Pranarthavat Bhayam Rajataha. From the government, Chaurataha, from thieves and rogues, Shatrahu, from enemies, Swajanat, from relatives, Pashu Pakshitaha, from animals and birds, Artibhyaha, from beggars and persons seeking charity, Kalataha, from the time factor, Swasmat, as well as from one's self. Nityam, always. Prana artat vat. Prana artavat. For one who has life or money. Bhayam, fear. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they are invariably afraid. Can you repeat after me? Those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they are invariably afraid. Purport. The word swasmat means from one's self. Because of attachment for money, the richest person is even afraid of himself. He fears that he may have locked his money in an unsafe manner and might have committed some mistake. Aside from the government and its income tax, and aside from thieves, even a rich man's own relatives are always thinking of how to take advantage of him or take away his money. Sometimes these relatives are described as Swajanaka Dasyu, which means rogues and thieves in the guise of relatives. Therefore, there is a need, rather, there is no need. There is no need to accumulate wealth or unnecessarily endeavor for more and more money. The real business of life is to ask, who am I? And to understand one's self. One should understand the position of the living entity in this material world and understand how to return home back to Godhead. A translation to the verse again: those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. And thus, they are invariably afraid. In another place, this is referred to as, Bhagavatam refers to relatives and friends and all different personalities as fallible soldiers. We are surrounding ourselves. uh, we are trying to build security. We are trying in so many ways to get support or assistance from different individuals, but all of them are fallible soldiers. One devotee gave some quote somewhere from Shastra, giving the story of two frogs. One frog, we know in the rainy season, the frogs make a lot of noise. And of course, for all the noise that they make, the snake is close by, waiting for that noise to start, because then he starts his business of catching the frogs. So there was one frog who was caught by one snake. And then another frog standing by, looking at him, then he also gets caught by a snake. So the second frog is telling him, or the first frog is telling him, just wait, I'll come and help you. Nobody can help anyone in this material world, factually, because everyone is vulnerable. We ourselves are vulnerable. and therefore we should not take the only shelter we should be seeking is the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is not fallible, who is not fallible, or shelter of the holy name, or shelter of devotional service. So this is the part of the illusory world in which we are living. We endeavor to make so many arrangements so that we can be comfortable and secure. We get life insurance thinking that now I'm okay. It is not life insurance, it is death insurance. Um, so, so a devotee, therefore, like Bhagavad Gita explains, one is always having darshan. Janmam ritu jaravyadi dukado sanudarshanam. It is not being morbid. It is not being pessimistic. Sometimes people, they accuse you people, why you speak so much about death? My mother, she never liked to speak about, she didn't want to hear this word death. And my mother had a natural instinct that when the whole, in the 60s, when they were planning, when they actually, on television anyways, landed on the moon, my mother said, they didn't go to the moon. They can't go to the moon. She's a very simple lady, but who kind of by instinct knew that you just can't go, to these places. Of course, Prabhupada said the same thing. Shastra is telling the same thing. So we are living in a world of fantasy, the world of illusion. It's a beautiful world, but it's illusory. So therefore, one who is fortunate to begin to receive proper knowledge, transcendental knowledge, will see through the falsities of these relationships in the material world, either relationships between individuals or our our finding our attempt in finding security by, no, I finally got promoted. Now I'm at I'm at the head of the company. I finally reached the top. There's no position that is secure in the material world, and therefore, the more we rely on fallible soldiers, then the more we will be deceived. So this requires Divya Gyan, transcendental knowledge. And this is being pointed out here also. The more one has generally, then the more anxiety increases also, because the more you have to lose. He agrees with it. The more one so therefore, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochatina Kanchati. We are advised to come to that platform, Brahma Bhuta platform, which is a platform that devotees very quickly can actually attain. If we actually meditate, and the more we realize the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, then we don't waste our time in things that are beyond our control. We rather learn to properly use our time for for the primary goal and purpose of life. Otherwise, it is such a world of falsity, isn't it? False, what we call false narratives, isn't it? The whole world, or as Mr. T would say, fake news. The world is full of fake news, and actually everything about the material world is fake, actually, because it's a mirage, right? It's a perverted reflection. We are living out a perverted life when we're not Krishna conscious. Yeah. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada would very boldly and very often clearly state, we are all criminals. And no one likes the idea that, no one likes to be called a criminal, but actually that is our position in the material world. We are all criminals, and we are all, just like Prabhupada was giving the example of his Guru Maharaj once meeting with a couple, like a married couple, and the wife was initiated, but the husband was not. Sometimes it happens that the husband is initiated and the wife is not. Anyways, in this case, the wife was initiated, and this particular husband, he was a little bit he was a little bit skeptic and kind of in a challenging mood. His wrong understanding of Krishna was that Krishna, and many people actually who don't understand Krishna's actual position, consider him to be, immoral, right? So he was telling Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that, I am not so much interested. Krishna is like a playboy, and both in Vrindavan, also in it's like in Dwarka. So many women who are just always obsessed by women, and he did so many things that really were not. He's known as he's a thief. He did so many things, wrong things, from a social point, moral, social point of view. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the story was narrated that he tried to point out that actually, because you don't understand who is Krishna, he is the Purusha, he's the original, he's God, he's the original personality of Godhead. And all living entities actually belong to him. And you're married, and you're trying to enjoy your wife, but actually she doesn't belong to you. So you're the playboy. Completely turned upside down. I don't know if he started to chant Hare Krishna. It's a question of having proper vision, isn't it? Shastra Chakshu. Shastra is the means by which we can see and understand things properly. Every single thing that happens in our lives is meant to happen. And we label it as good or bad, desirable, undesirable, wanted, unwanted. But actually it has to happen. And therefore, like we were discussing, this was part of the message conveyed in one of the previous purports, how happiness and distress is already worked out, from the moment of conception. That living entity conceives, or the body rather conceives. The living entity is not conceived. The living entity is eternal. But that living entity that is taking shelter of that pea-like form, which will be developing in due course of time as a human being, from that very moment, the happiness and distress becomes manifest, isn't it? And therefore, the more we clearly understand this, therefore, as devotees, and we should, then we won't be bothered by having, working unnecessarily, strenuously, as most people are, to just get a better deal in life. People, people are after a better deal. It's like, a better situation, a better job, and people, the whole life is centered around how to just improve and yeah, whole effort how to increase our comfortable condition, situation, and how to minimize and decrease. Yeah, but a devotee actually should minimize such concern to the point of just not even worrying about it, because whatever we do, we have X amount of plus and minuses coming our ways. And that, when we, of course, as devotees, we are meant to think about the very pitiful condition, actually, of such living entities. It's like when we think about, at least when I think about where I was before becoming a devotee, it's like a horrible condition. I mean, just to be in ignorance, just to be not knowing who we are and what life is all about, etc., like that. And of course, the more we are covered in this ignorance, then we do all kinds of crazy things, isn't it? And for which we also suffer. So the whole world is like just that is the meditation and the concerns, actually, of devotees, of Vaishnavas. Titikshaka, Titikshava Karunika, Suridam Sarvadehinam. Devotees, as described in the Bhagavatam, are meant to be very tolerant, understanding that this material situation in which we are in at present presents all kinds of situations that are very difficult for us, and unless we learn to tolerate them, we will not survive. We will not be able to cope with such situations. So, and then compassion is meant to be the most the foremost of all qualities, actually, that a Vaishnava has. Otherwise, why endeavor to do anything unless we have some little understanding that that is the primary reason and purpose why Krishna descends in the material world, isn't it? To give an opportunity to those living entities who are still completely covered by ignorance, by Maya. So devotees can see, the more we become devotees, we can see through the falsity of this material world. And we need to also, the more we keep that in mind, then we will also not fall prey to the falsities of the material world, and therefore remain, fixed in the goal and whatnot. So this is the first of the two verses we are reading here. One
more is there.
One more.
So that 34.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. But I'm just looking at the end of the translation. It mentions or concludes, thus they are invariably afraid. So that's the condition, situation, right, of people who are devoid of this understanding. So that's why the more we realize, understand this knowledge that we're not the body, the preliminary, very basic knowledge that Prabhupada was always emphasizing. 34, and we said, which is a long purport, so I should just go to the 34 right now. Shoka, moha, bhaya, krodha, raga, klaibya, sramadaya, yanmula, syur, nrinam, jayat, jayat, spriham, panav, tayor, buddha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those in human society who are intelligent should give up the original cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, attachment, poverty, and unnecessary labor. The original cause of all of these is the desire for unnecessary prestige and money. Yes, fame and name. Fame and name. Purport. Here is the difference between Vedic culture and the modern demoniac civilization. It's important for us to understand. Vedic civilization, I think I should include this purport in my thesis. Maybe. Vedic civilization concerned itself with how to achieve self-realization. And for this purpose, one was recommended to have a small income to maintain body and soul together. In some of these purports, actually, Prabhupada is advising householders, something that probably householders, I'm sure, most householders, including devotee householders, don't like to hear.
Yes.
Minimize your income. I mean, this is like revolutionary, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Vedic culture recommends to have a small income. What is this? You know, no wonder Western people just don't like Vedic civilization. They don't want to work, and they want a small income.
Yeah, modern society is motivated by the desires. The Vedic society is motivated by the self-realization.
Yes, it's a different kind of development. You know, self-realization, development of self-realization, and the other one is economic development. So Vedic culture therefore recommends to have a small income to maintain body and soul together. Completely God. So different, completely. It's like night and day, black and white. The society was divided into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. That sounds like Varnasrama, right?
Yeah.
And Shudras. And the members of this society would limit their endeavors to meeting their minimum demands. Horrible. How horrible. What a horrible purport. The Brahmanas in particular would have no material desires. I mean, this is unacceptable. Because the Kshatriyas had to rule the people, it was necessary for them to have money and prestige. Okay, so if you want to have money and prestige, be a Kshatriya. But the Vaishyas were satisfied with agricultural produce and milk from the cow. And if by chance there were excess, trade was allowed. And by nature, actually in Vrindavan, we know, Nanda Maharaj, who's the king of the Vaishyas, he and everyone, pretty well everyone in Vrindavan, were very opulent. By nature, this natural opulence comes when we follow the rules or follow the system. Yeah. The Shudras were also happy. Wow. Which is not the situation in modern day society. The Shudras were also happy, for they would get food and shelter from the three higher classes. In the demoniac civilization of the present day, however, there is no question of Brahmanas or Kshatriyas. There are only so-called workers and flourishing mercantile class who have no goal in life. So Prabhupada, he would explain that actually capitalism and communism. Yeah, capitalism is for the Vaishyas and communism is the Shudras. And in this way they will live forever, ever, yeah, and they will continue to fight. According to Vedic civilization, the ultimate perfection of life is to take sannyas. But at the present moment, people do not know why sannyasa is accepted. Even majority of people who accept sannyas don't know why sannyas is accepted. And of course, modern society, they don't even know about sannyas. Because of misunderstanding, they think that one accepts sannyas to escape social responsibilities. Yes, that Prabhupada gave a whole lecture. Huh?
Mithyachari.
Mithya.
That means just to escape from social
yeah, false renouncement. But one does not accept sannyas to accept from responsibility to society. Generally, one accepts sannyas at the fourth stage of spiritual life. One begins as a brahmachari, then becomes a grihastha, vanaprastha, and finally a sannyasi, to take advantage of the duration of one's life by engaging oneself fully in self-realization. Sannyas does not mean begging from door to door to accumulate money for sense gratification. However, in Kali Yuga, people are more or less prone to sense gratification. Immature sannyas, because in Kali Yuga, people are more or less prone to sense gratification, immature sannyas is not recommended. Actually, that is one of the 5 do nots in Kali Yuga, to take sannyas. Right? Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Nectar of Instruction, verse number 2, Atyahara prayasasya prajalpu niyam agraha janasangaschalolyam cha sadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. Translation: one's devotional services spoil when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. Number 1, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. Number 2, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. Number 3, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, especially on Facebook. Number 4, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. Number 5, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6, being greedy for mundane advancement. End of quotation. Huh?
Mundane achievements.
Achievements. What did I say?
Advancement.
For mundane achievements. A sannyasi should have an institution. This is interesting. A sannyasi should have an institution meant to preach Krishna consciousness. He need not accumulate money for himself. We recommend that as soon as money accumulates in our Krishna consciousness movement, 50% of it should be invested in printing books and 50% for expenditures, especially especially in establishing centers all over the world. So part of that actually should be to establish Vaishnava communities. That's a whole other topic, but a very important one. The managers, there's a purport here for managers. The managers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely cautious in regard to this point. And who are the managers? Temple presidents are managers. GBCs are managers. There's a purport for the GBCs and temple presidents. The managers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely cautious in regard to this point. Otherwise, money will be the cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, material attachment, material poverty, and unnecessary hard work. When I was alone in Vrindavan, I never attempted to construct mutts or temples. Rather, I was fully satisfied with the small amount of money I could gather by selling back to Godhead. And thus, I would provide for myself and also print the literature. When I went to foreign countries, I lived according to the same principle. But when Europeans and Americans began to give money profusely, I started temples and deity worship. The same principle should still be followed. Whatever money is collected should, and not a farthing for sense gratification. This is the Bhagavat principle. Is that clear? That's not in the purport. It's purport of the purport. So a very important instruction that our Grihastha just completely missed. There was also instructions for householders here. But for the benefit of those who are coming late for Bhagavatam class, we will read the two verses. Today we read two verses, which is text number 33 and 34. And then if there's any comments or questions, we will look at that also. Ashmana should be here all the time. So text 33, I will, is as follows. This is the saintly Brahmana speaking to Prahlad Maharaj on his request. Those who are considered materially powerful and rich. I'm not saying this purport was especially for you. But there's something to be learned from everything. Those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves, rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they are invariably afraid. And text 34, those in human society who are intelligent should give up the original cause for lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, attachment, poverty, and unnecessary labor. The original cause of all of these is a desire for unnecessary prestige and money. But I will read two lines, especially for Vasudam Prabhu. Special mercy coming your way. We read the text normally twice, but usually we don't read the purport twice. I won't read the whole purport, but something that you may like to hear this or not, but you have to hear it. You're following Chaturmas? Yeah? No. Okay. You don't have any blades? We can arrange blades for you. So he's not in the category of powerful and rich. Okay. So Prabhupada begins like this. I'll read one, two. I'll just read two lines for you. These are the first two lines. And you might find this, not might, you will definitely find this interesting. Something to ponder on. Here, so I'm just reading as it is, right? I'm not making up anything here. Here is the difference between Vedic civilization and the modern demoniac civilization. First line. And the second line. Vedic civilization concerned itself with how to achieve self-realization. And for this purpose, one was recommended to have a small income to maintain body and soul together. End of the two lines. Not end of the purport. But in other purports, Prabhupada goes on to explain even a bit more. regarding householders and their means of income and their occupations and like that. But we'll keep that for possibly another day. So any comments or questions from here or from there?
Yeah, I have a question. My question is, so Prabhupada is
We need to get one microphone so that
question will be asked.
yeah, so we don't so we save time, right? I don't have to repeat. Go ahead.
So it is clear that we have to have an institution for this preaching purpose.
Prabhupada mentioned that purport sannyasis should have their institution.
Yeah, should have an institution. And also it is said one should have
Very good.
Little earning for maintaining body and soul.
Yeah, something. Keep body and soul.
But we are not seeing this in the society. So what are the reasons?
In which society?
In our society. Devotee society.
Well, so okay. So you're telling that actually Prabhupada is telling in the purport that we should minimize our income and we should just have small income to maintain our body and soul together. And so your comment, your observation, maybe your speculation, is that we don't see that in our society, meaning our ISKCON society.
Majority of our
society members. Okay. That's a better statement. It's a more nuanced statement that we don't see this at all. So then the question is, what? Why?
Why? What are the reasons?
What are the reasons?
Where we struck?
Okay, so your observation or understanding is that we read about so many things. Today we are hearing about learning to be satisfied with minimum small salary, etc., like that. And from your observations, we don't see that so much in our own society amongst devotees. Why is that?
And also some people, they say counter argument. So we are learning for this.
One question at a time. So of course we are all very limited in what we see and observe, isn't it? So in other words, there might be more people than you think who are living according to this instruction. There may be more people who are endeavoring to be satisfied with the minimum in life as opposed to what modern society is promoting, the maximum. And in case there are, and of course, there's probably always too many people, whatever percentage that may be, who are endeavoring to accumulate more than they actually need. That is simply cause or due to, two factors come to mind. One is each individual person has to, if one is not very mature and strong in one's Krishna consciousness, the tendency will be to accumulate more than what we need. The tendency will be to be more on the bodily platform. And the second reason is that modern day society is just made that way. And therefore, most of us, majority of us, are caught up in that kind of world situation. And so there is a tremendous pressure from the outside world. And another factor also is that this applies especially to those who are householders. Of course, there may be brahmacharis also here in India who are involved, for example, in like life membership. But of course, life membership collection is meant for the reason that Prabhupada mentions in the purport to advance the cause of Krishna consciousness, printing books and then establishing temples. But generally, money making, income is the domain of householders because they need to have something for their griha, isn't it? So heart of the problem, and I would say part of the main problem is that, and we face this as a society. We have yet to understand what is being recommended, like here and in other places also within the context of Vedic culture, that the economic model, the economic model recommended in the Shastra is directly and intimately connected with land and cows, isn't it? And therefore, the real opulence, just like now with the whole global financial crisis that we are all experiencing or getting affected by, it's becoming more and more clear and obvious that countries need to base their economy on something solid, on ultimately what the Vedic culture recommends. Economy, finances is meant to be gold standardized. And it's very interesting what is taking place in the world today, because this gold standardization is more and more leaders in different countries are waking up to that without really understanding, because they've not, I'm guessing, but it's probably a good guess, that most of them haven't read or are not reading on a daily basis the Bhagavatam, isn't it? But somehow Krishna is like the magician, right? Yogeshwara, the master of all yogis. So he's making things happen in such a way that the world is being forced, the leaders in the world today are being forced to actually come to this basic principle that actually our economy should be based on real value. Because I've not studied this, but maybe I think it was right after the Second World War, the U.S. made a decision one fine morning that, okay, the U.S. dollar is going to be the standard for the whole world. And initially it was like meant to be backed up by every dollar by, like by real value, gold. But then after some time, this was not possible, and they just printed, and they're still doing that, printing money, so that every single country in the world, including the U.S., and they like to be number one all the time, and I think maybe they might also be the number one that is in the most debt. Everyone is in debt, and that's why things happen in Sri Lanka the way they did, right? I mean, partially. So many factors are there as well. But this is simply showing and indicating that the more we sway away from, the more we deviate from what is meant to be the norm. The norm in economics, coming back to our grihastas, coming back to Vasudham Prabhu, who's representing the grihastas in our class this morning by default. The very important lesson for our grihastas to learn, and it's really very fundamental, and it will become even more critical as the days and as the weeks go by. And as I mentioned, the leaders in the world today, some of them, more and more, it's happening on a daily basis, are becoming more conscious of this, and therefore, like the dollar, which is affecting every monetary system in the world, including the rupee. The rupee is also falling. It's part of modern civilization falling. Yeah. So that's why, here this wonderful purport Prabhupada is giving, the difference between Vedic civilization and modern civilization. It's like unfolding. It's like a movie taking place. but it's a live movie, and we're part of it. You know? So, so therefore, it's most important, urgently important for our householders, especially because they're the ones who are meant to be concerned about economy, isn't it? Not only for their own personal family, but in general for society. And generally, leaders, I mean, kshatriyas, leaders, are also grihastas, generally speaking, isn't it? The royal family, royal order, very few exceptions. So what is important to understand is something that Prabhupada has tried to impress upon us again and again. Real economy, real sustainable economy is with land. And that's why the whole Vedic culture is agrarian culture. It's not just a sentimental thing. It's a very scientific reality that sustainable economy, real sustainable economy, is that connected with land and cows, isn't it? Things that have value. So therefore, Prabhupada would say, if you have money, of course, his Guru Maharaj told him, if you ever get money, print books. And then Prabhupada added to that, that if you get money, investment, real investment, if you have money, is in books and land.
Temples.
Huh?
Temples and deities.
No, land. Because because no matter what happens to the economy, no matter how long you may have a book, that book, as soon as you open it, will help you. You know, it's like a permanent asset and value. It has permanent value. Like land also has permanent. As soon as you start looking after your land, working your land, by having a few cows on your land, then your land becomes more and more, exhibits more and more of its value. It is like a hidden value. So this is most important. You know, we need to remind ourselves what Prabhupada told us and tried to remind us on so many occasions, that modern civilization is a doomed civilization. And modern civilization is going to come to an end soon. Prabhupada said that, you know, and he actually gave a time also. Motor civilization will end in 50 years. He said that in 1973. So if you've been to primary school, you can probably figure out 50 years after 1973. It's just around the corner, isn't it? Yeah.
23, right? 2020,
23. 1973, 2023, that's 50 years. Right? So
Guru Maharaj actually, for the, in general, now the mood or the understanding of the people is working in industries, in corporate.
The understanding of people
is very easy. Earning livelihood as a
yes, that is, yeah, that so-called understanding is their misunderstanding, because they are not having proper knowledge. So yes, therefore Prabhupada mentioned, for example, because that was one argument devotees were telling, well, you know, majority of people are going the other way.
Yes.
So Prabhupada said, let them go the other way. We're going this way. Let us create these communities. Let us follow the Vedic norm, and invite, of course, encourage as much as possible people to follow this recommended process, the recommended lifestyle, and those who are fortunate will come. They'll associate, they'll visit, they'll even make a major decision to become devotees and to live with us. Let us do that. And we cannot force people, you know, we cannot force them to change their worldview, etc., like that. But in course of time, people will come to understand, you know, when the world falls apart, because this is a history. A history, as we say, repeats itself. You know, empires have come and gone. And empires go when they deviate from basic, essential, fundamental principles and concepts or values and whatnot. So we are at this junction right now, and so many times over the years, some of our leaders have pointed out, like Krishna is sending different what we call wake up calls, wake up calls, Jeev Jago calls. But we're so comfortably sleeping on the lap of Maya that you can't. Somebody really wants to sleep, he won't wake up. But this purport is most important, like so many other purports in the Bhagavatam. And we have to stop here. Don't want to stop here. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi.